Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of Rainer on Leadership, podcast for leadership in any sphere. Now the number 5 show in leadership, but particularly that in the church. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and I feel like I'm going to conquer the world.
Number 5. Last time we brought that up, I think we were hovering around 8, 9, but
yeah,
we were climbing the ladder.
So I know what's going on there, though, because we went from 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week.
So let's put 17 episodes next week.
It ups our numbers. It's just more free. It's more free content for our listeners. There you go. And more opportunities to talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, and to tell our sponsors. Our first sponsors, Southern Seminary.
Yeah, I love Southern Seminary. I have such a heart for that school. My dad was a dean there. I graduated from there. So I can talk with endearment in my voice. Maybe I don't know if I'm using that word quite appropriately.
You do. When you read these spots, it's like it's mushy, man. It's mushy.
Listen, there's some amazing. I have some great memories from.
I'm a little uncomfortable. I am. So go ahead and read the spot.
All of my memories are from like being on the tractor and being on the grounds crew and mowing Al Muller's yard. And I mowed the yard to the glory of God. That's what I did. So
praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Hey, they've got a great doctor of ministry program. Don't want to miss out on this. Very practical. Yes, they're known for their academic side of things. They're known for theology. They're known for being like the premier seminary in the world. But they've got great solutions for your church, and that's where you need to go to find out more about the Doctor of Ministry program, sbts.edu/solutions. Again, sbts.edu/solutions. Can't go wrong by checking out the D-Min program at Southern Seminary.
Yeah, and wherever you go to seminary, podcasting, that's going to teach you the stuff they don't teach in seminary. Seminaries are just not built to teach you this kind of stuff, and one of those is, man, how do you increase the tithe? We need to increase the tithe, and that's today's episode. We're talking about our members. No matter what church you're a part of, I'm quite confident that, they're not given what they should be. I know that. If you did the math, they're not given what they should be. Sam, do you have, as you often do, any statistical data
I do.
To throw at us?
Yeah, so this episode came about, somebody messaged me, and I wrote in the show notes, I received a message from a friend. I totally forget who that friend was, so if you're that friend, I've forgotten who you are.
If you are that friend, he loves a seminary in Louisville, Kentucky more than you. He doesn't even remember your name, bro.
Oh, gosh. Well, that may be true. Point taken. And fair enough. So here's the thing. He was like, hey, 50% of my church is giving. And he's like, is that normal? Like 50% of the people that attend on a Sunday. And I was like, I don't know. So I did some math and looked some stuff up, and statistically, 75% of people will give in the typical church. So if you had 100 people on average on a Sunday morning, 75 are giving. So he was way below average. Now, those things can even out because you might have less people giving more, a lot more, so you may actually be doing better than what's typical. But yeah, most churches have about 75% of active people giving.
Yeah, and I don't know who this friend is, but another case might be a very young church. And so if you've got a ton of kids, they're not giving, and so that number could go down. But in a normal, where you've got the majority of them are adults, senior adults, median, then three out of the 4 categories are going to be givers.
That is a really good distinction. So I'm just going to say, and I probably should do more research on this, but 75% of the giving units. So let's talk about families.
Which is something that if you're starting to dive into this, if you're a church leader, start to learn things like what a giving unit is versus what a giving person is. Also, per capita giving is going to help you so much. Not just so much in talking about it and understanding it, but a lot in your own psyche and your emotional well-being. So the more that you know these things, the better. Sam, I'm going to go on a limb here. I think tithing.
I'll cut the limb.
Cut it off. I don't climb very high. I'm afraid of heights. The tithing is a church word that, while I believe in it, not only believe in it, it always cracks me up when people do you believe in the tithe? Well, yeah. I mean, who doesn't? It is a thing. I believe in it. Whether or not I support it, I support the idea of the tithe theoretically. I think it's pretty low bar. When you start looking back in the Old Testament and how much they gave, my thing is sacrificial giving. Give as much as you can and a little bit more on a consistent, habitual level. So I say all that to say, I think we as pastors need to talk about tithing less and talk about tithing more. So stop using the word tithing and start using the principle of sacrificial, habitual giving. That you need to give everything you can, a little bit more, on a habitual level. Make it a discipline. And what I find a lot of times, one of the very first things, and we're going to talk about some other things, but maybe this would be in the category of communication, is don't be afraid to talk about money. Don't be so shy about it. Don't apologize about it. Money is a huge part of the American life. It's a huge part of church world. It's a huge part of our spiritual walk. So don't be afraid to talk about it. But my one caveat is stop calling it tithing. That's an old school term that used to mean something that it no longer means to people. And so, you can use it, but make sure you're defining it.
So
What say you, Sam?
I teach the tithe. I teach 10%. I think that's a good baseline. That's kind of how I would refer to it. I agree with you that most of us as Americans are called to more than that.
Sure.
It's not a goal. It's a starting point for those of us.
I always say it's the floor, not the ceiling.
Yeah, that's another way to say it.
I like it.
So I'm not afraid to teach the term because it's in the Bible. It's like a biblical term. Jesus affirms the tithe in Matthew. I know there are some people who would say otherwise, but that's my viewpoint. And if you're at my church, guess what? You're going to hear about the tithe. And I don't apologize about that because, frankly, I really believe in what we're doing at my church. And if I were leading a nonprofit organization, a parachurch ministry, a Christian school, whatever it is, if I had some other ministry that wasn't a church, guess what I'd be doing? I would be seeking out people to give to the mission because I believe in what we're doing. So I'm not looking to guilt anybody into giving. I don't know who gives what. I never see a name attached to amount. So it's not like I'm wanting to know to play favorites or to, that person's a big giver, so I'm going to treat them differently. None of that. I really believe in what we're doing as a church. I believe God honors those who give and churches that are generous. And I think when a lot of people in the church are practicing sacrificial giving, God does amazing things through that. It's a spiritual discipline, just like anything else. And it's a gift. I think it's also a gift. There are people who are gifted in giving. And if you're not going to develop that gift, you're just missing out on a big blessing. You really are.
Yeah, you really are. So I'm going to mess with our notes here a little bit, but
Please do. Mess with the show notes.
All right, great. So we've talked about this idea of talking about it more. Let's talk a little bit about what you talk about when you talk about it. And so under the idea of mission, here's my advice. People we've got to pay the electricity bill. We've got to pay the mortgage, right? Those things are true, but debt payments aren't sexy. Nobody wants to give towards that, and that shouldn't be your motivating factor anyway.
Well, that's a quote right there. I'm going to put that on X.
Yeah, put that in there.
Debt payments aren't sexy, Josh King.
They're not. You know what is more attractive?
My wife, Josh.
Of the church. So here's one of those very key things. We call it a giving moment. Churches do this all over the place. Not new to me, but I have seen now 2 churches, the financial giving drastically increase when we have a regular weekly a moment of financial or like a giving moment. And here's the important phrase. Because you gave, we were able to, and then fill in the blank. And every church, every week has something that they can do. You could talk about, and we've crafted these into sort of announcements. Right now we have Vacation Bible School coming up. We're signing up people for Vacation Bible School. So we had a young lady, she got up there, she talked about Vacation Bible School. I said, hey, sign up for that. Also, church, it's because of your generosity that we're able to reach these students and these children and stuff like that. So if you would like to give towards that and other things, the plates will be passed in a moment. There's a QR code on the screen. You see how that's different than just passing a plate and assuming that they understand that this is going to go to missions and ministry, or saying up there, and now it's time for y'all to put your money in the plate, and then just passing it. Really tell them this is something that's exciting that's going on.
So you get a cute little girl up there with tears in her eyes.
Yeah.
And she's saying, please give more. so that I can have goldfish snacks and I won't go hungry. That's a
Yeah,
that's
that's
an
a
old
way to do
that's
it.
an old reference to the David Platt reference from back in the day and goldfish. For those of you,
Yeah, I
that's for
remember
those of
that.
you
I
who get
remember
it.
that.
That's for the yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing about communication. We've talked about talking about it more. We talked about what you say when you're asking it. But here's another thing that people often forget that is a huge help. What you say after they give, right? So every week, a staff person here lets me know these are the people who gave for the first time. I have two categories that I'm told. These are the people who gave for the first time. These are the children who gave for the first time. And then I'm also told if there is what is deemed a significant gift. So that, that varies. I don't really truly know what qualifies, but it's easy to see when it comes in. So I write handwritten thank you cards to those people and let them know. I don't have any statistical data that will tell you that giving increases. Now, giving does increase. I don't know if those are directly causal, but I just think it's the right thing to do. Sam, what do you think about that?
I think you're spot on. A culture of generosity is going to encourage more giving. Whatever you have to do to increase that culture of generosity. One of the things that we've found that is very successful, and it's just something operational that's not hard to do. We give people a lot of options, and what I mean by options is we pass the plate every week. We have a moment where we pray over the offering. I know that's old school, but that's what we do. Our deacons take up the offering. That's one of their big roles, is to make sure that all of the finances of the church are very, there's a tight system there, particularly when they don't handle the back end stuff, but they handle like the collection of it. So there's a high level of trust with them. So we pass the plate. We have online giving. We have box giving. So we have little boxes throughout the church. We're often talking about giving. We're set up to receive Bitcoin. We're set up to receive hard assets like gold, which people have brought in. We had somebody bring in a bag of gold. No joke. I don't know who it was, because I don't know who gives what. I don't know the whole story behind it, but it was
Did they find it in a chest on the beach? Did they?
leprechaun. It was a leprechaun.
Oh,
They went to
come
the
on,
end
a
of the rainbow.
pirate.
The end of the rainbow ends here in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a pot of gold, and yeah,
No,
it helped fund our
pirate,
renovation back in.
pirate booty would have been way more fun.
Oh,
Way
that's a
more
much
fun
better.
than life.
Yeah, no. You're
Yeah,
right. This is Tampa Bay. Yeah, no,
yeah.
it definitely would have been
That's
Pirates.
It was
Go
pirate
Bucks.
booty.
Go
Also, I get
Bucks.
to say booty. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, we have all these options, and we get things in the mail. We just have a lot of different ways that we can receive gifts, and instead of limiting people, we open up all the options. Some of our biggest gifts have come through the box giving. One, because they're locked, and again, I don't know who, but whoever put it in there, maybe it was just convenient, or maybe they thought, I know who's counting, I know the deacons, and I don't necessarily want them to see this check. And I don't have time to bring it by the church office. So I'm going to put it in the box because the financial director is the one who goes and gets the stuff out of the boxes. So again, I don't know. I'm speculating there. But my point is that when you give people a lot of options to give with many different mechanisms, you open things up. We do text to give every week as well on the screens. That number goes up. So we just make it an emphasis. We try to make it as worshipful as possible, as purposeful as possible. And it's also a point where we can communicate financial things to the church, whether it be a celebration or a need. I think you should do this every week. I think that this should be just part of your service every week.
I agree. There should be some financial moments where you are thanking people. Some other things that you can say afterwards are when you're keeping track of certain things, like we had a significant gift. In our business meetings, I like to share with them, hey, church, this last quarter, I wrote, 17 or 70 or whatever it is, first time giver notes. I wrote that. So there's two things that are going on in there. We are showing generosity. The pastor is writing handwritten notes. That's a good thing. They want to see their pastor do things like that. They also want to know that we are being appreciated, that your gifts are appreciated as well. And they're celebrating, 17 people this last quarter stepped to the plate, something like that. I'll also break that about, this is how many kids ones we wrote. And then another thing that we let people know about is recurring gifts. We also had 45 people or giving units switch over to recurring giving online, which is a huge help. So I want to say thank you to all of you, that kind of stuff. So that kind of post-giving communication is super helpful.
Do you do any donor development?
Kind of. I really want to acquire sort of a volunteer role. I've got all these ideas on how we could do more donor development, and there's ideas that are out there. There's some that are also just kind of brain childs of my own, and so no. In some ways, though, we have other mechanisms that I've said, hey, start doing this when people give, or start sending this out. In the past, I have identified, or I've had them run reports, and these people attend they attend a small group regularly, but they don't give anything that we have record of. And so we've shot them 3 or 4.
So let me get this correct. So when they're in a small group and they're not giving, you shoot them.
Right. Yes. It's just we need the chair. It's simple logistics.
Shot them. What did you shot them? I just had to interrupt you at that point because
I know.
we have people in groups that aren't giving, and we shot them, and that's right. And then there was a slight pause there, and I inserted myself.
Just the way your brain works. No, we'll shoot them a postcard. We've done it before where there's like 3 postcards. They look like they're just going to the general church, but they're not guilt driven. There are often a lot of times what we do with that giving moment and says, hey, because you're a member of the church, we just want to thank you because this is how many children were at Vacation Bible School, and this is how many prayed to receive Christ. It's because of your giving that we were able to do that. You see, we're letting them know in a passive way because we don't want to burden people. We don't want to put guilt on them. We don't want to hurt their feelings or anything. We just want to let them know your giving does more than you think it does. We also make a big emphasis of just smaller gifts, smaller regular gifts. I've done that before. This is how many people give regularly, and they're what we would consider to be smaller gifts. And those are huge deals. I've even done the math and shown what a portion, like this is what percentage of our giving comes in through what would be considered small gifts. And so if you think your small gift is insignificant, it's not. That's how this thing operates, and that's how this thing works. So.
Yeah, and we've mentioned that before on this episode, and this is something I teach my church. The widow's mite is a very powerful thing. God may honor a church and multiply gifts in miraculous ways because there was somebody there who gave quite sacrificially. So, for all you know, the Holy Spirit blessed with a movement because 3 widows said, we don't have a lot, but we're going to give. So the big gifts are important, and I do think donor development to some degree is important within the church because if you have big projects that you want to do or need to do, you're going to have to do donor development. But just as important is the spiritual discipline of giving, even among people who don't have a lot, who are like, hey, I gave $10 this week. It's all I could do, but I sacrificed a meal to give. Yeah, and awesome. It's like, that's just as big of a blessing to the church as the large gift. There is spiritual power in those small gifts. And I often tell that to my church, not because I want all the widows giving all their money. I don't. Like we make sure we care for them. Our deacons actually do a great job caring for our widows. But I do think God honors that sacrificial spirit in the church. And if there is a culture of generosity in the church, it just seems to multiply. I can't explain it. I don't understand it all, but I do think the Spirit moves through that generosity in the same way the Spirit moves through, hey, all of our people are sharing their faith. Guess what? You're probably going to see more people get saved through the ministry of your church. Hey, we've got a movement of discipleship occurring. Guess what? The Spirit's going to probably give you more spiritually mature people. Hey, our people are really giving sacrificially. Okay, that's going to multiply too. So this is one piece of a broader picture of what discipleship is. I think the point that we're both making is we often leave it out. We don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And we just assume that, it's money, so we shouldn't talk about it. No, this is a huge part of what Jesus taught about in the New Testament. He taught more about giving than he did, he taught about both, but giving was mentioned more times. So what's more important? I think that it's an important thing.
It's a very important thing. And I think there's a guilt there that because there's this idea that all pastors want is money. And that's just not the case. You don't look at somebody that's like raising money for the SPCA and say, oh, all y'all want is money. Obviously, they want to help animals. Or the local food pantry. It's like, hey, make a donation to this. Oh, you care about his money. No, obviously, they want to help people eat. And that's the same thing. But here's the difference. Here's what has happened in the past, especially with your charlatans and your really not actually Christian TV evangelist type of folks, where they're just driving at money. What we think is it's either we've got to talk about them giving or we can't talk about money. And my thing is you can sit down and think about a dozen other aspects of money that you don't have to talk about them giving. For one, worship, stewarding your own personal finances is worship. Regardless if you give any money to the church, how you steward your finances, making sure that your home is cared for, providing for your family, those kind of things, that's worship. So you can talk about that, and you can even make the comment, look, I'm not telling you to give any money to the church. I'm not. But we need to talk about the other ways that we manage money. And gambling and those kind of things, those can turn into real problems. So you can talk about that. Another thing is talking about savings. Scripture has lots to talk about savings. I find that people in our church like to hear when we saved money. Hey, we did this, we went through this exercise, and we got a new copy machine. And the copy machine now saves us X number of dollars a year. We're stewarding the money that you provided for us in this way or that way. We moved all of our midweek groupings, like small groups and meetings. We tried to move them all to one night. Or it was actually 2 nights a week. That way we could shut the building down and turn off the air conditioner. We saved X number of dollars on that, church. We are stewarding your money well. So that's not asking for money. That's not saying you need to give. That's not saying make sure that first 10%, that kind of stuff that people don't want us to say, although it is biblical. It is talking about other aspects of giving and keeping that in the front. And what you're going to find is people who are sensitive to the Spirit and people who are gifted financially, they've got that Midas touch. They make gold in their own life. They love giving towards those kind of efforts. When they see the mission and when they see good stewardship, they love giving. But if all you ever do is stand up there and say, y'all need to give, electricity bills do, then the debt payments aren't sexy. So that's not going to generate as much giving. You're always going to have some folks that give towards the bills, because they're just disciplined folks. But
you know what also is not sexy? There's a lot of answers you could have said. So
I mean,
go ahead and answer. Capital campaigns for air conditioning units.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to do that.
But I think by the time this airs, we will have paid off everything on phase 1, which is the bigger part of the project. Rolling into phase 2. Congratulations, church.
Good job, Brenton. But here's what I would say though, Sam. I don't know. I have not seen a single piece of material from your capital campaign. But I would bet money, not really to talk about this stuff, but I would bet money that you put the mission out there. Why this thing is hindering the mission and how we can better do mission if these things were paid for.
You're exactly right. Do you want to know what the name of the capital campaign was?
Freezing hell over.
Hell is hot, church is not. And the website, hellishotchurchesnot.com, used to go to our campaign landing page.
That's funny.
You know where hellishotchurchesnot.com goes now?
Where?
My worship pastor's page.
Well, I think that proves the point. You're able to raise, and I want to be very careful here. I'm not trying to teach other pastors how to manipulate people into giving. What we're trying to do is not be afraid. If you're shepherding their souls, if we're talking about their spiritual development and their discipleship, you are doing a disservice by not talking about money. So that's one thing, discipling the people of your church. There's the other thing is that you are charged by that church to run it well. And part of that is paying the bills and keeping maintenance up. So that's what I got to say. Talk about money more and talk about it well.
All a very good word, and want to thank our sponsor, Church Teams. hey, they can help you with the money issues, right? They do
They can help you
online
chart it.
giving. So if it's a systems thing, if it's a software thing, if it's a back end sort of thing, listen, go to church teams. Go.churchteams.com. They can help you with online giving. They can help you with communication. Text to give or texting, text in church. They can do all of that. So if you're sitting there going, okay, I think I know what to do. How do I do this? Go.churchteams.com. Tell them that we sent you. We would love for you to sign up for their stuff, and that way we can get credit for it, because they do a really good job over there at Church Teams.
They sure do. Hey, we hope the principles we talked about today's episode will help increase the tithing in your church so that you guys can flourish. And if it does, if you find this to be helpful in a few months, why don't you tell somebody else about the show? Share the show. Let them know where you got this helpful information, and hopefully you can help other people as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.